Picture this scenario. You're scrolling through social media at midnight, watching people your age post about their latest expensive purchases, their dream vacations, and their seemingly perfect financial lives. Meanwhile, you're calculating whether you can afford that premium coffee tomorrow or if you need to stick with the instant stuff that tastes like disappointment. Sound familiar? Well, what if I told you that within just 3 months, you could leapfrog ahead of 95% of people financially, not through some get-rich-quick scheme or cryptocurrency gambling, but by mastering fundamentals that most people never even learn? Most people think financial success requires decades of grinding, perfect timing, or some secret knowledge that only wealthy families pass down through generations. But here's something that might shock you. The average American got just 48% of basic financial literacy questions correct in recent testing. That's a failing grade. Nearly half of all adults give their personal finance knowledge a grade of C or worse. This means that by simply understanding concepts that should be taught in high school, you immediately outperform roughly half of the population. If you're someone who's tired of feeling behind financially and wants to understand the specific steps that can transform your financial trajectory in just 90 days, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps clarify your path forward. Before we dive into the 3-month transformation plan, let me paint you a picture of what financial mediocrity actually looks like in America today. The statistics are honestly pretty devastating. More than 1 in 5 Americans have zero emergency savings. Zero. That means 21% of people you encounter daily would be financially destroyed by a single unexpected expense. Even more alarming, nearly 2 in 5 Americans couldn't handle an emergency expense over $400 without borrowing money or using credit cards. But it gets worse. The median emergency savings for Americans is just $600. $600 to handle job loss, medical emergencies, car repairs, or any of life's inevitable curveballs. Think about what $600 actually covers in today's economy. That might pay for a decent car repair, but definitely not a transmission replacement. It might cover a minor medical procedure, but certainly not an emergency room visit. It's basically enough to make you feel slightly less panicked about small problems, while remaining completely vulnerable to medium-sized ones. Meanwhile, the average American household is carrying over $6,000 in credit card debt at interest rates averaging 23% annually. 23%. That means people are paying nearly a quarter of their debt balance every year, just for the privilege of owing money. If you're carrying the average credit card balance, an off. That's not building wealth.d making minimum payments. That's financial quicksand. Here, spend over $18,000 in interest charges alone and take nearly 22 years to pay. It's where things get really interesting, though. These aren't problems that require superhuman discipline or massive income increases to solve. They're problems that exist because most people never learned the basics. And when I say basics, I mean concepts so fundamental that mastering them creates an immediate and permanent advantage over the majority of your peers. The beautiful thing about financial literacy is that it's not like athletics or artistic talent where natural ability plays a huge role. Every single strategy I'm about to share with you can math skills. You don't need to be implemented by anyone with internet access and basic into wealth, inherit money, or discover some revolutionary investment strategy. You just need to understand principles that have been creating millionaires for decades, but somehow aren't taught in schools. Let me show you exactly how this works with some real numbers that demonstrate why 3 months is the perfect time frame for this transformation. The first 60 days focus on defense, eliminating the behaviors and situations that keep people financially trapped. The final 30 days shift to offense, implementing systems that will compound your advantages for years to come. During month 1, you're going to achieve something that puts you ahead of roughly 40% of Americans immediately. You're going to build a $1,000 emergency buffer. I know that might not sound revolutionary, but consider this. $1,000 in readily accessible savings means you can handle most minor car repairs without panic. You can cover urgent care visits without credit cards. You can replace essential appliances without borrowing money. Most importantly, you can think strategically about opportunities instead of constantly reacting to financial emergencies. But here's the part that most financial advice completely misses. Building that first $1,000 isn't really about the money itself. It's about rewiring your brain to think like someone who has money saved instead of someone who spends everything they earn. The psychological shift that happens when you see a four-figure balance in your account fundamentally changes how you approach every financial decision going forward. During month 2, you're going to eliminate high-interest debt using a strategy that most people get backwards. Instead of focusing on the smallest balances first, which feels emotionally satisfying but costs more money, you're going to target the highest interest rates first. This mathematical approach saves thousands in interest charges and accelerates your debt elimination timeline dramatically. Here's why this matters more than you might realize. Every dollar you pay in credit card interest is a dollar that can never compound in your favor. It's gone forever, enriching credit card companies instead of building your wealth. When you eliminate debt carrying 23% interest, you're essentially earning a guaranteed 23% return on every dollar you use for debt payments. Show me an investment that guarantees 23% annual returns with zero risk. You can't because it doesn't exist outside of debt elimination. Month 3 is where the real magic happens. This is when you implement systems that will continue working in your favor long after the 90-day period ends. You're going to automate your finances in ways that make wealth building feel effortless. You're going to optimize accounts that most people don't even know exist. Most importantly, you're going to start investing in a way that takes advantage of compound interest, which Einstein supposedly called the eighth wonder of the world. The compound effect of these changes extends far beyond just the numbers in your accounts. When you have emergency savings, you make better career decisions because you're not desperate. When you're debt-free, you can take calculated risks that create opportunities. When you understand investing basics, you stop making emotional decisions that destroy wealth over time. But perhaps the most significant transformation happens in your daily decision-making process. Right now, you probably experience what psychologists call decision fatigue from constantly calculating whether you can afford things. Should I buy the name brand groceries or stick with generic? Can I afford to go out with friends this weekend? Is it worth paying for premium gas, or will regular be fine? Each of these micro decisions burns mental energy throughout the day. When you have your financial foundation solid, 90% of these daily calculations become irrelevant. You're not choosing between generic and name brand products because you're worried about your bank account. You're choosing based on actual preferences and value. This might seem like a small thing, but imagine how much mental bandwidth you'd free up if you stopped having to make survival-based financial calculations 50 times per day. The acceleration becomes even more dramatic as you move beyond the initial 3 months. By month 6, you'll likely have eliminated all high-interest debt and built substantial emergency savings. By month 12, you'll have investment accounts generating meaningful returns. By month 24, compound interest starts becoming a noticeable factor in your wealth building. But here's something that will probably surprise you about this entire process. The hardest part isn't learning the strategies or implementing the systems. The hardest part is developing the identity of someone who builds wealth instead of someone who just hopes their financial situation will magically improve. Most people approach money management like a temporary diet. They'll cut expenses aggressively for a few weeks, feel proud of their progress, then gradually drift back to old spending patterns when the initial motivation fades. But the people who successfully transform their finances in 3 months don't think of this as a short-term project. They think of it as becoming a fundamentally different type of person, someone who understands money instead of being confused by it, someone who makes intentional decisions instead of hoping for the best, someone who builds systems instead of relying on willpower. This identity shift affects every aspect of how you interact with money going forward. When you see yourself as someone who saves, you start noticing opportunities to reduce expenses that were invisible before. When you see yourself as someone who invests, You begin thinking long term instead of focusing only on immediate gratification. When you see yourself as someone who understands finance, you stop making decisions based on fear or wishful thinking. Let's talk about what happens during week one specifically, because this is where most people either succeed or give up entirely. You're going to conduct what I call a financial reality audit. This isn't about judging yourself or feeling guilty about past decisions. It's about getting crystal clear on where you actually stand right now so you can make informed decisions about where you want to go. You're going to track every single dollar that flows in and out of your accounts for 7 days, not to restrict your spending, but to understand your spending. Most people have no idea where their money actually goes. They think they spend maybe $50 a month on coffee, but when they track it carefully, they discover it's closer to $150. They assume their subscription services cost around $30 monthly, but the real number is closer to $80. This awareness creates immediate opportunities for optimization without feeling deprived. Maybe you discover you're paying for 3 different streaming services, but only actively using one. Maybe you realize you're buying lunch every day out of habit, not because you actually prefer restaurant food to homemade meals. Maybe you find recurring charges for services you forgot you signed up for months ago. During week 2, you're going to open a high-yield savings account that pays actual interest instead of the pathetic rates offered by traditional banks. The national average savings rate right now is 0.41% annually. Many high-yield accounts are offering over 4%. That's roughly 10 times higher returns on money you're keeping in savings anyway. This might not sound like a huge difference, but let's run the numbers. If you keep $5,000 in a traditional savings account, earning 0.4%, you'll earn about $20 per year in interest. The same $5,000 in a high-yield account, earning 4%, generates $200 annually. That's $180 extra dollars for doing absolutely nothing except choosing a better bank. But the real benefit isn't just the extra interest income, it's that you're now thinking like someone who optimizes their money instead of someone who accepts whatever financial institutions offer by default. This mindset shift will save you thousands of dollars over time as you start questioning other areas where you might be accepting suboptimal terms. Week 3 focuses on debt elimination strategy. If you're carrying credit card balances, you're going to list every debt with its balance, minimum payment, and interest rate. Then, you're going to organize them by interest rate from highest to lowest. This is called the debt avalanche method, and it's mathematically superior to the more popular debt snowball approach that focuses on smallest balances first. Here's why the avalanche method works better for people who understand basic math. Every month you continue carrying a balance at 23% interest, you're essentially paying a 23% penalty for the privilege of owing money. When you eliminate the highest interest debt first, you stop bleeding money at the fastest rate possible. Let's say you have 3 credit cards. Card A has a $2,000 balance at 15% interest. Card B has a $3,000 balance at 19% interest. Card C has a $1,500 balance at 24% interest. Most people would attack Card C first because it has the smallest balance and would create a quick psychological win. But mathematically, every extra dollar you put toward Card C saves you 24 cents per year in interest charges. Every extra dollar toward Card B saves 19 cents. Every extra dollar toward Card A saves only 15 cents. The optimal strategy pays minimums on A and B while throwing every available dollar at C until it's eliminated, then moving to B, then A. Then, week 4 is where you start building what I call financial automation. This is probably the most important week of the entire 3-month process, because it creates systems that continue working even when your motivation fluctuates. You're going to set up automatic transfers from your checking account to your savings account immediately after each paycheck hits. The key is making this transfer happen before you have a chance to spend the money on anything else. Most people try to save whatever money is left over at the end of the month. But here's the problem with that approach. There's never any money left over. Expenses expand to fill whatever income is available, a phenomenon economists call Parkinson's law applied to personal finance. Instead, you're going to pay yourself first. If you want to save $400 monthly, that money gets automatically moved to savings the day your paycheck deposits. Then you live on whatever remains. This forces you to make spending decisions based on your actual available income after savings, not before. The psychological impact of this system is profound. Within a few weeks, you stop thinking of that $400 as your money that got taken away. You start thinking of it as money that was never available for spending in the first place. It becomes as automatic and unconscious as tax withholding from your paycheck. Month 2 brings us to investment account optimization. This is where most people get overwhelmed because the investment industry has created an unnecessarily complex ecosystem designed to confuse consumers into paying higher fees. But successful investing is actually much simpler than the financial services industry wants you to believe. You're going to open a retirement account if you don't already have one. If your employer offers a 401k with matching contributions, that's your first priority. Employer matching is essentially free money, and failing to capture it is like declining a raise at work. If your company matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your salary, and you're not contributing at least 6%, you're leaving money on the table that will never be offered again. If you don't have access to an employer plan, or after you've maximized your employer match, you'll open an individual retirement account. The contribution limits for 2025 are $7,000 for people under 50, with an additional $1,000 catch-up contribution allowed for those 50 and older. The investment strategy itself is remarkably straightforward. You're going to invest in low-cost index funds that track the total stock market. This gives you ownership stakes in hundreds or thousands of companies through a single investment. You're not trying to beat the market by picking individual stocks or timing perfect entry points. You're trying to match the market's long-term performance, which has averaged around 10% annually for decades. Here's why this approach works better than trying to be clever with your investments. Professional fund managers with teams of analysts and sophisticated research tools consistently fail to beat simple index funds over long time periods. If highly paid experts with unlimited resources can't consistently outperform the market, what makes individual investors think they can do it by reading articles online? The beauty of index fund investing is that it requires no special knowledge, no ongoing research, no emotional decision-making, and no attempts to predict future market movements. You contribute consistently, invest in diversified index funds, and let compound interest work over decades. The mathematical reality of this approach becomes clear when you run the numbers over extended periods. Let's say you start investing $300 monthly in a diversified index fund, earning 8% annually, which is actually conservative compared to historical market performance. After year 1, you've contributed $3,600 and your account balance sits around $3,800. Not exactly life-changing money, but you've built the foundation. Here's where compound interest starts flexing its muscles. By year 5, you've personally contributed $18,000, but your account balance shows around $22,000. That extra $4,000 represents money your investments earned without any additional effort from you. Your money literally made money while you were sleeping, working, or binge-watching Netflix. But the real magic happens in the later years. By year 10, you've contributed $36,000 personally, but your account balance approaches $55,000. Now, we're talking about nearly $20,000 in pure investment growth. By year 20, your contributions total $72,000, but your account balance exceeds $170,000. At this point, your investments are generating more annual returns than your original monthly contributions. This exponential growth pattern is why starting early matters so much more than starting with large amounts. The person who begins investing $300 monthly at age 25 will accumulate significantly more wealth than someone who starts investing $600 monthly at age 35, even though the second person contributes more total money. During month 3, you're going to implement what I call the optimization sweep. This is when you examine every recurring expense in your budget and determine whether you're getting maximum value for each dollar spent. Most people sign up for services when they need them, then never revisit those decisions even when their circumstances change. Start with your phone plan. The average American pays over $100 monthly for wireless service, but many people could reduce this to $50 or less without sacrificing functionality. If you're paying for unlimited data but rarely use more than 5 gigabytes, you're essentially donating money to telecommunications companies every month. Next, examine your insurance policies. Auto insurance rates vary dramatically between companies, and most people stay with their current provider out of inertia rather than satisfaction. Spending 2 hours comparing quotes could save you several $100s annually. The same principle applies to renters or homeowners insurance, where rate shopping can generate substantial savings without reducing coverage. Subscription services represent another area where optimization creates immediate improvements. The average household now pays for multiple streaming services, software subscriptions, gym memberships, and various digital services. Many people couldn't even list all their recurring subscriptions without checking their bank statements. Here's an exercise that will probably shock you. Go through your credit card and bank statements for the past 3 months and highlight every recurring charge. Then categorize each subscription as essential, valuable, or unnecessary. Essential subscriptions directly support your health, safety, or income generation. Valuable subscriptions provide genuine enjoyment or convenience that justifies their cost. Unnecessary subscriptions are things you signed up for but rarely use, or services that duplicate functionality you get elsewhere. Most people discover they're paying for services they forgot they had, duplicate subscriptions that provide similar benefits, or premium features they never actually use. Eliminating unnecessary subscriptions and downgrading overpriced services often frees up $100 to $300 monthly without impacting your quality of life. But here's something interesting that happens during this optimization process. You start thinking differently about money itself. Instead of viewing expenses as fixed costs that you have to accept, you begin seeing them as choices that you can actively manage. This shift in perspective creates ongoing benefits that extend far beyond the initial 3-month period. The compound effect of financial literacy becomes apparent in ways that go beyond just account balances. When you understand concepts like opportunity cost, you make different decisions about major purchases. That new car payment isn't just $500 monthly. It's $500 that could have grown to several thousand in your investment accounts over the loan term. When you grasp the power of compound interest, you think differently about debt. That credit card balance isn't just money you owe. It's money that's actively preventing you from building wealth, because every dollar in interest payments is a dollar that can't compound in your favor. When you comprehend tax-advantaged accounts, you structure your savings to minimize tax liability while maximizing growth potential. The difference between investing in a taxable account versus a retirement account can amount to tens of thousands of dollars over time, purely due to tax treatment. These concepts aren't complicated once you understand them, but they're completely invisible to people who never learned basic financial principles. This is why financial literacy creates such a dramatic advantage. You're literally playing by different rules than people who make decisions based on gut feelings or conventional wisdom. The behavioral changes that occur during month 3 often surprise people. You stop making impulse purchases because you understand opportunity cost. You start questioning marketing messages because you recognize psychological manipulation tactics. You become more patient with financial goals because you understand exponential growth curves. Most importantly, you develop what psychologists call an internal locus of control regarding money. Instead of feeling like financial success depends on luck, timing, or external circumstances beyond your influence, you recognize that wealth building follows predictable patterns that anyone can implement with sufficient knowledge and discipline. This mindset shift affects career decisions in profound ways. When you're not desperate for your next paycheck, you can negotiate salaries more effectively. When you understand investing, you can evaluate job offers that include equity compensation. When you have emergency savings, you can take calculated risks that create opportunities for advancement. The networking effects of financial literacy extend into relationships and social situations. You start gravitating toward people who share similar financial values and goals. You become someone others seek out for advice and guidance. You gain confidence in professional settings because money stress isn't consuming your mental bandwidth. By the end of 3 months, you'll have accomplished something that puts you ahead of the vast majority of your peers. You'll have emergency savings that provide genuine security. You'll be debt-free or have a clear path to debt elimination. You'll have investment accounts that are automatically building wealth through compound interest. Most importantly, you'll have developed the knowledge and habits that will continue creating advantages for decades to come. The transformation isn't just financial, it's psychological, social, and professional. You'll sleep better because you're not worried about unexpected expenses. You'll make better decisions because you're not operating from a scarcity mindset. You'll have more options because you're not trapped by financial desperation. But here's the part that most people don't expect. The journey from financial mediocrity to financial competence isn't just about reaching a destination. It's about becoming the type of person who naturally makes decisions that build wealth over time. The habits you develop during these 3 months become the foundation for everything that follows. Look, 3 months from now, you can either be in the exact same financial position you're in right now, still calculating whether you can afford that coffee while scrolling through other people's highlight reels, or you can be the person who understands money while everyone else remains confused by it. The choice is entirely yours, and the clock starts ticking the moment you decide to stop making excuses and start implementing these systems. Your future self is counting on the decision you make right now.